And with me now is Admiral James Stavridis, former Supreme Allied Commander at NATO and now NBC News Chief International Security and Diplomacy Expert. Admiral, it's great to have you. I just want to ask you what's the motivation here? The president pulled the troops out of the northern Syrian border because he said he wants to bring them home. NBC News reporters and producers saw troops crossing over the border into Iraq to fight ISIS there. Why move them from northern Syria to Iraq? It looks like from the outside that this was, can we say this was Donald Trump trying to please Erdogan and just moving the troops out of the way? Or is that not fair?
No, I think that is part of it. Part of it is this now famous phone call between President Erdogan and President Trump. As I've said before, the good news is they buried the hatchet. The bad news is they buried it in the back of the Kurds. And just to put some numbers on Richard's excellent reporting, there are 300,000 Kurds, probably 70,000 of them children, who are literally walking into the desert. Newsflash, winter is coming. This is going to get much worse before it is salvageable. I think there's also a component here of domestic politics. The president seems seized with this idea of bring the troops home. He thinks somehow pulling them out, 2,000 troops out of Syria, satisfies a kind of a campaign-like talking point.
But he's not bringing them home.
He is not, A, and B, Katie, and you know this very well, the mission in Afghanistan at peak had 150,000 troops. The mission in Iraq, 185,000 troops. We're now down in the entire Middle East to under 15, 17,000 troops. We've brought home 90, 95% of these troops. And the 2,000 troops or so that were in Syria were the absolute center of gravity of this effort to hold ISIS down above all. And Richard was saying, you know, you see the fires starting here. Think of it like a forest fire. We have walked away from a forest fire that we actually put out the fire, but the embers are still on the ground, and they are going to reflash. So humanitarian crisis, betrayal of ally, ISIS comes back. Who's the winner? Turkey somewhat, and above all, it's Vladimir Putin of Russia and the Iranians. It's a bad set of circumstances.
Can you make sense of that? Can you make sense of why the president would want to hand those people a win?
I cannot make sense of it, and the only explanation is a lot of tactical thinking from the White House. Tactical as in, hey, I'm in a phone call with President Erdogan. Let me acquiesce in his demands. Hey, I can pull those troops out. He's been trying to do this for a year. This is why Secretary Mattis, of course, resigned, Katie, as you know. But I think for President Trump, this is part of what he perceives as fulfilling a campaign promise to bring the troops home. But he's
not bringing them home.
He is not bringing them home, and he's missing a crucial point, which is something he ought to understand as a businessman. This is a small investment that creates real leverage. And so to pull these troops out now and then put them right next door in Iraq reduces their military efficiency in combating ISIS. That's what I'm really concerned about as a military officer.
Let me ask you about this. The president also says he's going to send troops to Saudi Arabia because they're going to pay for it 100%. Are American troops paid missionaries in that scenario?
Of course not. And the thing that we ought to also worry about, the
mercenaries, not missionaries. I'm sorry.
I got you. The knock-on strategic effect here of withdrawing and leaving the Kurds in the lurch is going to be that if I'm an Estonian and I'm worried about Russians, or I'm a South Korean and I'm worried about the North Koreans, or I'm an Afghani and I'm worried about a sudden pullout from Afghanistan, we have devalued the currency of our word by what we've done. Our troops are not mercenaries. They are there for American security first and foremost, and we have reduced American security with the policies we've seen over the last several days.
Admiral James Stavridis. Admiral, thank you very much.
Thanks, Katie.
Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Beat the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.